So one of the first responders was in the field, and she said that while she was rushing to save life, she saw in the battlefield where she was looking for survivors, she saw scattered underwear. And when I asked her, and what did you think of it? Like, did you report to anyone? And she said, I couldn't think of anything other than just saving lives. When I think about it in retrospect, and you ask me, did you see something out of the ordinary pertaining mainly to women that you wouldn't expect to see at a terrorist attack scene? Then it comes to mind that, yes, I've seen this, and now I can find an explanation to something like this. There was a physician who gave us also a testimony, and she said that she saw that some of the bodies got there without underwear, and it seemed strange to her. But again, like, identification was the main priority. Some of the reports or testimonies that we have are of the type that are not necessarily, that it takes time to understand and realize what they mean. So, for example, Mia Shem, when she got back, with time, she started providing more and more information about incidents that she had. One of them was, for example, that when she was abducted and put in a car, the terrorist next to her robbed her chest while she was in the car, being taken hostage. She was very specific about trying to insert a tampon. I don't know if you saw this testimony, that she was trying to insert a tampon, and they were there with her, a man and a woman, and she fainted because it was so painful with her wounded hand. Later on, she's been mentally tortured by the men who told her that he has seen her naked because she fainted without her panties on. In one of the, again, in the Ministry of Health report, they say that young men were forced to sexually interact, if you may say so. They were not referring to a rape, but definitely to sexual interactions. And in our report, we also got an indication for brutal maiming of a man in his genital. In some of the cases, the thought is now for us that maybe the shooting is, in a way, a part of the concealment, like what you do under these, in instilling terror is, and definitely when it comes to sexual crimes, war crimes, it's there, but it isn't. It is, we know that it happened, but we can't really tell the extent because then most of the victims are killed, and even the accounts that we have, testimonies that we have about people hearing a woman being raped, then they, in the two accounts that we now have of such cases, or three accounts that we have of these cases, they're talking about the women being eventually killed. We have research indicating that the fear of being raped in Israel has been immensely grown, even though it's not, it's not necessarily the fear of being raped here in Israel by Israelis, but like as an abstract way over our shoulders as women mainly. And women who were, and also men who were subjected in the past to sexual abuse are way more triggered for victims of this type of sexual abuse by terrorists, by the enemy. Like, they would be more motivated to come forward. And with time, it's becoming so much clearer that the opposite is true for a few reasons. First of all, we have the layers of trauma that are, the more traumatic the incident was, the less it is likely for the victim to speak up. That's like, we know that this is a psychological relation or correlation between the two. and people who were kept hostage. So you have the trauma of first of all of them were part of the terrorist attack, right? So they endured the terrorist attack. Many of them endured other losses, like think of the watchwomen soldiers. They saw their friends being murdered in front of their eyes. Later on, one of them was also being murdered in the Shifa hospital in front of their eyes, or maybe, or at least they heard of it. I don't know if it was in front of their eyes. I want to be very accurate. And then they're being beaten, starved, treated as animals, being locked in a cage, and being sexually assaulted. So the layers of trauma that you endure and are very much, hampering your ability to speak up about what you've been gone through. We've had some of the hostages saying that they feel that they don't have the right to complain about being sexually abused when people are being murdered. Like, how can you come and complain about this? The fact that in many of the cases, the fear is always that if we say something, they will do something to others that are being kept hostage. Maybe they would prefer killing them rather than having them tell their story when they're out there. And also, I'm thinking of her own interest, like a woman's own interest. It's mainly women, right? So, or even for men, of course. What is the interest? The interest is the interest of healing. If you come forward with your story, you'll be subjected to, first of all, the great interest embedded in your horrible experience by others in your state, right? So given the denialism and the silencing and so on and so forth of Israelis and then the horrible experience, like the second layer of bad experience that we've had with this in this respect of denialism, then there's a great motivation to bring to the fore the stories. From the other side, those who are denying the sexual violence would come after her. And we've seen that happening in the few cases of testimonies that we had. On the one hand, huge pressure to take it out there and to speak for others, to speak for Israel. Like, it's not the interest of the victim now. Her interest is to speak to a psychologist. Normally, there are some of the women who would prefer speaking up, but this is their choice, and normally this is not the case.